I always believed family meant unconditional love and unwavering support. But I was wrong. It took just one inheritance and a few bank statements for my family to show me who they really were. My name is Aisha, and this is the story of how the people I loved tried to take everything from me until I walked away and left them all speechless. It all started after the sudden passing of my grandmother, Nanny. She wasn't just my grandmother, she had practically raised me. My parents, especially my mother, Farah, were more interested in her social life than raising a daughter. Dad, busy with his business, was mostly absent. So Nanny became my home, my safe place, my rock. I never imagined her absence would feel like a hole punched through my chest. A month after the funeral, I was called into her lawyer's office for the reading of the will. I sat alone, nervously clutching the edge of my handbag, not knowing what to expect. When the lawyer read that she had left her entire estate, her house, a few land properties, and her savings to me, I was stunned. My parents and younger brother, Cameron, were left nothing. The lawyer looked at me kindly and said, "Your grandmother trusted you the most. She said you were the only one who never saw her as a burden." I could already imagine the storm this would bring. When I returned home that evening, I was met with silence. Not the kind you hear when someone's tired or grieving, but the kind that's calculated, ice cold. Mom was sitting on the couch, arms folded. Dad sat across from her, jaw tight. Cameron was scrolling on his phone, pretending not to notice me. "So?" Mom finally asked. "So what?" "Don't play dumb, Aisha. We heard from Uncle Tarek. Nanny left everything to you, didn't she?" Her voice was sharper than usual. I hesitated, but lying wouldn't help. "Yes," she did. A beat passed. Then Dad stood up, towering over me. "You think you earned that?" he snapped. "You think caring for her makes you more deserving than your own parents? I didn't ask for any of this. But you didn't say no either." Cameron cut in, tossing his phone aside. "You're just going to keep it all to yourself, huh?" Mom chimed in, "We're your family. Everything she had should be shared. It's not just yours. You're being selfish." I stared at them, stunned. Selfish? I spent years taking care of Nanny, cleaning, cooking, taking her to appointments, sleeping in hospital chairs. Where were they then? "I'm not giving up what she gave me," I said, my voice shaking but firm. That was the moment the war began. Over the next few weeks, their behavior changed completely. Breakfasts were eaten in silence. Doors were slammed. Passive-aggressive comments echoed through the house. "You know, Cameron could finally buy that car if his sister weren't hoarding money," Mom said one day, loud enough for me to hear from my room. "You should be grateful we let you live here. Some families would kick you out," Dad added another night. I started locking my door. I hid documents. I stopped eating meals with them. Then one morning, Mom handed me a neatly printed list. I unfolded it. It was a detailed invoice of expenses they claimed to have spent raising me, down to diapers, school fees, clothes. "We think it's only fair you pay us back," she said sweetly. "Since you're the rich one now." I looked up at her, horrified. "Are you serious?" "As a heart attack," Dad muttered. I tore the paper in half and dropped it on the floor. "I owe you nothing." Things escalated from there. Cameron started barging into my room, going through my drawers, by accident. My laptop went missing one day. I found it in his bag. He smirked and said, "Thought it was mine." Mom denied everything. Dad warned me not to make a scene. The final blow came when I checked my bank account one afternoon. $15,000 was missing. Gone. I froze. I hadn't touched it. I called the bank and filed a complaint. They said it was transferred to a family member, someone who had my online access. Someone who lived under my roof. When I confronted Dad, he didn't even blink. "Your money is family money. I took it to pay a loan. We're struggling because of you." I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. This was theft. But he looked at me like I was the criminal. That night, I packed my bags. Quietly. Calmly. I left them a letter. "You said I was selfish. That I owed you for raising me. But family doesn't blackmail, steal, and manipulate. I've spent years trying to earn your love. But now I see I was just a bank account to you. I'm walking away. Keep your bitterness. I'll keep my peace." I moved into Nanny's house the next day. Alone, yes, But for the first time, I felt safe. I changed all my passwords, froze my accounts, filed a fraud report. I got a lawyer. What they didn't know was that Nanny had also left behind video journals, dozens of heartfelt recordings, some of which talked about my parents' neglect, about how she wanted me to have everything, not them. I had evidence, and I was ready to use it. The silence in Nanny's house felt like peace. No slamming doors, no accusations hurled over dinner, no guilt traps waiting in the hallway. Just me, her framed photo smiling on the mantel, and the quiet hum of independence. But peace doesn't last long when a greedy family's been cut off. 2 days after I moved in, my lawyer called. "Your father tried to file a claim to freeze the inheritance," he said, his voice measured. "He's claiming undue influence. That you manipulated your grandmother." I laughed bitterly. So now I'm a thief and a con artist? They don't have a strong case. But they're pushing. Hard. I wasn't surprised. I expected retaliation. What I didn't expect was how public it would get. The next week, my parents hosted a family gathering and conveniently invited Nanny's distant relatives and neighbors, people who had barely kept in touch. I wasn't invited, of course. But someone sent me a video clip. It showed Mom standing in the middle of our old living room, dabbing fake tears with a tissue. "She raised that girl like her own," she sniffled. "And now, she's taken everything. We don't even have access to the house where we made our memories." Dad added, "She tricked my mother-in-law. That house, those savings, she planned it all." We're just devastated. They made me sound like a villain in my own story. But what hurt most wasn't the lies, it was how many people believed them. Messages started rolling in. "Aisha, is it true? Why wouldn't you share? You're better than this." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. I had something better. The video journals. Each clip of Nanny, sitting in her favorite armchair, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying. One particular video stood out, recorded just a month before her death. "I know they'll come for you, Beta. They don't love you the way they should. They love money. I'm sorry you grew up like this. But I want you to know, this is yours. I've seen your sacrifices. I've seen their neglect. Let them say what they want." That was the moment I stopped doubting myself. I sent the video to my lawyer. He nodded. "This will shut them down in court. You're doing the right thing." Still, the storm kept brewing. Cameron messaged me out of nowhere. "We can fix this, Aisha. Just give us the house. You keep the money." I didn't even reply. The next day, he and my parents showed up at my gate, unannounced, pounding on the door like a SWAT raid. "Aisha!" Mom shrieked. "Open this door right now." I stood inside, heart racing, but I didn't move. I dialed the police. They were escorted away 10 minutes later, screaming about betrayal, crying for the neighbors. But the final blow came in court. I had taken legal action against the unauthorized bank transfer. My father was now under investigation. Their attempt to paint me as manipulative backfired, especially when Nanny's videos were played aloud in front of the judge. My parents squirmed in their seats as Nanny's voice filled the room. Farah never cared for me. Not once in the hospital. But Aisha, she stayed. Night after night. That's why I'm leaving everything to her. She's my heart. The judge looked directly at them. Case dismissed. All assets lawfully belong to Ms. Aisha Malik. And the court recommends restitution for the stolen funds. Cameron cursed under his breath. Mom wept, this time genuinely. Dad's face drained of color. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd ever felt. But I wasn't done yet. 6 months after the courtroom victory, I no longer woke up dreading the day. I had rebuilt my life, not around pain or their expectations, but around peace, purpose, and quiet freedom. Nanny's house became my sanctuary. I turned her reading room into a small home office and began freelancing full-time. With the inheritance, I didn't have to work. But I wanted to. For the first time, I was living on my terms. One morning, while watering Nanny's roses, a sleek car pulled into the driveway. Cameron. I didn't flinch. I let him ring the bell, then opened the door, arms folded. He looked thinner. Not physically, but deflated. "I just want to talk." I didn't invite him in. He stayed on the porch, eyes flicking across the garden. "I didn't come to fight," he started. I came to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. I was angry, selfish. We all were. But losing the court case made me think. We lost because we deserved to lose. His voice cracked a little. I was jealous, Aisha. You were always there for Nanny. I was never around. I didn't even visit her that last week, and that guilt eats me alive. I didn't speak. I just let him talk. I lost my job, he continued. Dad burned bridges. Mom barely talks to him now. We're not a family anymore. Whose fault is that? I asked. He looked away. All of ours. But mostly Dad's. And Mom's. And mine. But not yours. I exhaled slowly. The words I had waited years to hear weren't satisfying. They were sad. Before he left, he turned around. You don't owe us anything, Aisha. But thank you for listening. When he was gone, I sat on the porch, letting the silence wash over me. They had finally accepted the truth. And I had finally found closure. Later that month, I was invited to speak at a local women's empowerment event. My lawyer had recommended me after hearing my story. I hesitated at first. What if people judged me again? But then I remembered Nanny's words. Your voice is stronger than their silence. So I spoke. About emotional manipulation disguised as family duty. About financial exploitation. About healing. About walking away. The crowd clapped, not out of pity, but respect. Afterward, a young girl approached me teary-eyed. I needed to hear that, she whispered. My parents guilt me into everything. I hugged her. That one moment made every betrayal worth it. A year later, I turned Nanny's house into a small community center. Nanny's Garden, I called it. A safe place for girls and women navigating family trauma, emotional abuse, or just needing space to breathe. I funded it entirely from the inheritance. Nanny would have wanted that. One afternoon, while hosting a writing workshop, a familiar figure stood at the edge of the hall. Mom. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there, hands trembling, eyes glossy. I didn't come to ask for anything, she said softly. I just wanted to see what you've done. I nodded, heart conflicted. You turned this into something good. Better than we ever deserved. She took out a photo, me and Nanny, sitting under the cherry blossom tree in the backyard. I kept this. All this time. I took it without a word. Goodbye, Aisha, she said. And walked away. Maybe that was her apology. Or maybe just a goodbye. Either way, I didn't chase after her. I didn't need to. I had walked away. And I never looked back.